Nightwatch is the automated browser testing framework that we'll be using to test our full-stack Vue application. It's a Node.js-based framework that's typically paired with a Selenium server, allowing you to run tests in any browser that is compatible with Selenium, including Chrome, Firefox, and Microsoft Edge. Now, the interface for Nightwatch is a lot like jQuery, as you can see in this code example here on the right. So both frameworks provide a fluent API, meaning that each method call will return the same object, allowing you to chain method after method like this. Now, some of the API methods provided by Nightwatch include browser commands. For example, the first one here, which instructs the browser to navigate to a particular URL, or this one here, which sets the value of a form input. And there's also assertions like this one, asserting that a particular element is visible on the page. When we scaffolded the Print Bay project initially with Vue CLI 3, we chose to include the Nightwatch plugin. We can provide configuration for Nightwatch using this Nightwatch JSON config file. The installation of the plugin not only added Nightwatch, but also the Selenium and Chrome drivers, which are necessary to run Nightwatch tests, so you don't have to worry about installing those. Now, one of the advantages of using the Vagrant development environment that I've provided is that it's pre-configured with headless Chrome and the various other dependencies needed for the test to run. So if you aren't using Vagrant, then you'll need to ensure that your environment is correctly set up by consulting the Nightwatch documentation for installation instructions. You'll see that there are already some boilerplate Nightwatch files down here in the tests E2E directory. Now, one of these files is this test.js file, which is a spec file containing a test suite. You'll see that there's already a sanity test included here, which we'll now try and run in order to confirm that our browser automation stack is working. Before we do though, we're going to remove all these assert statements here, as these relate to the boilerplate demo app that ships with Vue CLI 3, and they would just instantly fail if we tried to run those. With that done, we can run our end-to-end test suite. So open the terminal and make sure your dev server is not currently running, and then you can type the command npm run test:/e2e. The first thing you'll notice is it takes some time to run, typically 10 to 15 seconds, as it takes this long to set up and tear down the various parts of the software stack, like the Vue dev server, and also to load our app in the browser and wait for it to render. By the end though, you should see a message like this, OK1 assertion passed. You might see a couple of errors in the console as well, but don't worry about those, we'll be fixing those later. What we're going to do now though is reverse engineer the code in this sanity test here in order to understand more about how Nightwatch works. Unlike with unit testing frameworks like Mocha or Jest, Nightwatch test suites are function properties of a common JS module. In this spec file, we have one test defined and it's called default E2E tests. Test functions in Nightwatch are always passed an argument browser. This argument is an object that represents the browser that we're automating. The API of this object is what you use to create Nightwatch tests. The first method called on this API is this one, URL, which will command the browser to navigate to the specified URL, which in the case of this URL is the Vue app dev server. The next method, wait for element visible, tells the browser to wait for the element #app, or the element with the ID app, to be visible. This element, of course, is the root element of the Vue app. Now, why do we need to wait for it? Well, as you know, the browser will take some time to paint the page after we navigate to it. If we don't wait, Nightwatch might try to query the page before it's ready. The second argument to this method is the maximum wait time, which in this case is 5 seconds. Now note that Nightwatch will poll the page continuously until the element is found, up to a maximum wait time of 5 seconds as specified. What's interesting about the wait for element visible method is that it's both a command and an assertion. So it tells the app to wait for a certain element to be present, and it also reports on whether or not it was. So you'll see in the terminal this line here, which says element hash app was visible after 138 milliseconds. And it has this little green tick next to it. And that tells us that the assertion was passed. Now, Nightwatch provides many more assertion types, of course, and we'll see those in coming videos. Now, finally, the last method called is the end method. Now, this is a command that tells the browser to close and also marks an end to the test. In the next video, we'll be designing some more meaningful end-to-end tests to begin properly testing our Print Bay app.